Well, good morning, everybody. It's a great day in the city of Atlanta, Mayor. It's good to be in Atlanta today as we celebrate the passing of this historic legislation that will benefit Georgians who are just looking to own their piece of the American dream. Housing is dignity. Housing is stability. Housing is hope. And so I'm glad to have Mayor Andre Dickens, City Council member Andrea Boone, who both grew up here, and Soulful Shears Barbershop owner Jacob Parcell, along with his son. Being in the Adamsville neighborhood fills me with immense pride. As I said, this is where our mayor is from. This is where the council member is from. Good things come out of these neighborhoods. But unfortunately, this neighborhood, like many across metro Atlanta and Georgia, has been plagued by large corporations swooping in and literally buying up hundreds, thousands of homes. I hear from Georgians like Jacob all the time about how hard, and you heard from him today, how hard it is to buy a home. Here is somebody doing all the things we tell folks to do, playing by the rules. He's a small business owner in our community, generating income for others' possibility, working every day. And still it's hard to buy a home. And so what's happening in metro Atlanta is happening in communities all across the state. Private equity firms and major corporations have bought up thousands of single family homes, leaving Georgians without an opportunity. Let's be clear, if you're a single mom, if you're the married father of two trying to buy a home, owning a small barbershop, you cannot compete with Wall Street. They will outbid you every time. And so this is about fairness. And Atlanta, which we're proud of, Atlanta, the city of hope, is also ground zero for private equity's domination of the housing market. With more than 1 in 4 single-family rental homes, over 72,000 homes owned by large private equity investors. The home directly behind me is one of many across Georgia that have been bought up by large corporations and are no longer available for hardworking Georgians like Jacob who want to raise their children in a home. My message is very clear this morning. This home should be owned by a person and not a corporation. And so this has been going on a long time. It's past time for someone to do something about it. And that's why I'm proud to have written and negotiated legislation that will put a stop to this madness by banning private equity firms from mass purchasing single-family homes in communities like these and communities all across our state and our nation. This ban became law over the weekend as part of the largest bipartisan housing package in a generation. Yeah, you can clap, we're outside, but that's a good thing to celebrate. It is a step in the right direction, but there is still work that needs to be done. And so I understand personally the dignity and security that housing provides. I remember conversations that I overheard as a child between my parents who were trying to figure out how to buy a home. And so I remembered them. I thought of my dad. I thought of my mom. I thought of children like Jacob's son as I secured legislation to stop the spread of private equity from purchasing single-family homes. And we got this done even in a Republican-controlled Washington. I wrote the legislation, negotiated with my colleagues. I didn't get everything that I wanted, but I think we got some good things done here for Georgia and for Metro Atlanta. When you set politics aside and center the people, you have a chance at getting the public policy right. I promised the people of Georgia that I would walk with them even as I work for them. And so it's good to be walking through this neighborhood today and to think that over the weekend we were actually able to bring some good news. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joseph for your questions.
Hey everybody, so WAB?
Senator Raul Bally, WAB Radio. My big question is enforcement. How is this going to be enforced? Are you expecting the mayor to do the enforcement? Are you expecting the Trump administration to do the enforcement? How does this get enforced? Once somebody realizes there's 350 homes, how is that done with this legislation?
Yeah, the enforcement mechanism is in the legislation itself. And so once you get beyond the limit, it's a $1 million fine per home, or 3 times the purchasing price, whichever is highest. And so most of the corporations, almost all of them in our area that are mass producing these homes, they're already at 350, which is the cap. Were it left up to me, that cap would be lower. But the White House wanted the cap to be 1,000 homes. I wanted it to be 50. We landed here. And so what this means in effect is that this will stop the spread. This will stop the spread. And it's enforced by these huge financial fines.
But who's enforcing it? Are you looking to the mayor, the federal government?
No, this is a federal piece of legislation. Next question.
Atlanta Voice.
Senator, good morning. Is there, I've done ourselves to the Atlanta Voice. Is there anything that can be done about the 72,000 homes that are already owned by equity and corporations?
Thank you very much. The legislation is forward-looking. And so we need to continue to build homes in Georgia, all across the country. We are 5 million units short in housing in our nation. And that's what's driving up the price. There's just not enough stock. And so what I want to do is to stop the spread of corporations buying homes. So if you're already in a home that's owned by one of these corporations, this does not force the corporation to sell that home. But what we're trying to do is stop the spread. And this is a start in that direction. Yes?
This sounds almost like a victory declaration, but it sounds like it's tempered maybe with some concern about the wiliness of Wall Street. To what extent are you wary that this problem can continue despite the legislation?
Well, let's take a step back and recognize that this provision is part of a massive bipartisan piece of legislation that is tackling a real crisis in housing affordability in our country. And so no one provision in the legislation addresses this larger issue where we're 5 million units short. But what we are aiming to do is to put together, as we've done, various tools in this large piece of legislation to address the housing crisis. My provision, which I wrote, negotiated with my Republican colleague, stops the spread of corporations just swooping in, buying homes. They are picking homes the way you pick tomatoes in the grocery store. For you, it's a house. For them, it's just, something else they're throwing into their portfolio. And no one has addressed this so far. This is the first piece of federal legislation that tackles this head on. But you take that and you couple it with my Appraisal Modernization Act, which is also in this legislation, which I might say, by the way, is the only fair housing provision in the legislation. I wrote it. Because of the other thing that happens in communities like Adamsville is that people get appraisals and they deal with appraisal bias. And that's real dollars for real people. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it among my family members. There's a price you pay when you are in certain communities. And so for the first time, consumers have some means of recourse. In addition to that, there are incentives in the legislation to encourage mayors and others to do what I know this mayor's already committed to doing, and that is relax some of these outdated regulations and zoning restrictions that have made housing impossible. It's a big problem, and we're answering it, responding to it at various angles, and still there's a whole lot more I'd like to do.
Hey, 2 more questions, Ty.
About that, as you tried to me with capital B, you talked about the shortage, we need to build more, the zoning, restricted zoning, there's HUD grants available. Can you get specific about how Atlanta can take advantage of that?
Well, first off, this is landmark legislation, and I'm just proud of the senator for putting this out there right now. As on a go-forward basis, these families can have the protections that they need, that their community isn't going to keep being bought up by Wall Street. What that does is allows our programs that we've been doing, down payment assistance, encouraging local developers to build homes at starter home prices, at affordable home prices. It gives them a chance to compete in this marketplace for land prices as well as construction. And so this is going to help us tremendously on our goals that we're already moving forward with on building or preserving 20,000 units of affordable housing. And so with this helps us on the competitive landscape that we're not competing up against a ginormous private equity firm or Wall Street firm. We are also doing what we call our zoning rewrite 2.0, which is where we're looking at the city's zoning to make sure that it has provisions that allows for more options for home development that can be affordable. That may mean duplexes, that may mean on some corridors allowing for multifamily home construction. As well as townhome development, which is a way to have home ownership in townhomes or duplexes, etc., on the single piece of property. This is just enabling us to get more out of the land, and this type of provision with this Road Act encourages that, and it allows us to have our dollars go further because they're not going to be competing with a huge corporation. We'll be competing on a localized scale.